Society has a dirty little secret. It often demands that you lie to its face before it will ever give you a chance to tell your truth. We're told to be authentic, but we're judged by our zip codes and the labels on our clothes. So we play the game. We put on the costume, perform the role of success, and pray that we can turn the performance into reality before anyone discovers we're just imposters. This story is for anyone who understands that struggle, because it explores a powerful, mind-bending idea. What if the moment of your most humiliating exposure wasn't your downfall, but the beginning of your destiny? This is the terrifying reality that our hero, Ruby Price, is thrown into. She is a brilliant, ambitious woman with dreams bigger than her bank account, who believes she has to project wealth to be taken seriously. She meticulously faked a diamond, life not knowing the waiter signing her bill owns the brand. Imagine the absolute horror. You're in a 5-star restaurant, your act is flawless, and then your card is declined. Your world shrinks to a single point of soul-crushing shame, and the only witness to your downfall is the quiet, unassuming waiter who just so happens to be a secret billionaire in disguise. On one side of this story, you have Ruby, a woman with a heart of gold and a wallet full of dust, fighting for a dream she feels is just out of reach. On the other, you have Jeffrey Freeman, a lonely billionaire so tired of the fake people his wealth attracts that he works undercover in his own establishments, searching for a single person with genuine character. Their worlds were never supposed to collide, but a single, humiliating moment with a restaurant bill becomes the spark that ignites an unforgettable story of destiny and surprise. This isn't just a simple love story, it's a deeply emotional journey about kindness, redemption, and the powerful idea that your true worth has absolutely nothing to do with what's in your bank account. It's a story with a plot twist so perfect, it will restore your faith in the idea that good people and good hearts ultimately win. You are about to witness how a moment of absolute humiliation can transform into a moment of ultimate triumph, proving that the greatest assets we have are the ones no amount of money can ever buy. Before we dive into this incredible heart-aching story, we want to build a connection with all of you watching. Let us know in the comments what beautiful city or town you're watching from right now, so we can see how far our story has traveled. Your support means the world to us, so please take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next story, and share this with someone who you think will be touched by this powerful message. The clinking of crystal glasses felt like a countdown to Ruby Price. She smoothed down the fabric of her dress. A clever, fake designer piece and took a sip of water, the liquid doing little to quench the fire in her stomach. Every smile, every laugh, every sophisticated nod was part of a carefully constructed illusion. In this world of the truly rich, she was an actress playing the role of a lifetime, and frankly, she was terrified. The weight of her secret was heavier than any diamond necklace she pretended to own, an emotional burden she carried with every breath. Around her, conversations flowed like expensive champagne, all about summering in the Hamptons and the latest tech IPOs. It was a completely different universe from her own. Ruby just hoped she could make it through the night without her fragile reality shattering into a million pieces. She was here on a mission, a networking opportunity she couldn't afford to miss, but the cost of entry was proving to be sky high. She felt a pang of loneliness. It was a heart-aching and sad irony to feel so poor in a room so full of wealth. Then he approached her table, a simple waiter with a calm demeanor that seemed out of place amidst the chaos of wealth. His name tag, read Jeffrey. He moved with an unhurried grace, his eyes holding a curious depth. He wasn't like the others who rushed around with a frantic energy. There was a stillness about him, an observant quality that made Ruby feel seen, truly seen, for the first time all night. It was an unexpected surprise that sent a shiver down her spine, a feeling she couldn't quite name. "Is everything to your satisfaction, ma'am?" Jeffrey Freeman asked, his voice low and steady. It was a standard question, yet from him, it sounded like a genuine inquiry into her well-being. Ruby, caught off guard by his sincerity, simply nodded, her carefully rehearsed lines vanishing from her mind. This wasn't part of the script. This humble waiter with the kind eyes was a plot twist she hadn't anticipated. For a moment, she forgot she was pretending, and a genuine, unrehearsed smile touched her lips. A rare moment of authenticity. The evening eventually wound down, and the dreaded moment arrived: the bill. It was placed discreetly on the table, a small white rectangle that held the power to expose her entire charade. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she slipped her credit card into the leather folder, praying it wouldn't be declined. She felt the first wave of what could become a deeply humiliated experience, a public unraveling of her carefully woven secret. The air grew thick with tension, at least inside her own head, as she waited for the inevitable. Jeffrey returned, his expression unreadable. He wasn't looking at her with pity or disdain, but with something else: in intense curiosity. "There seems to be an issue with the card," he said softly, his voice a gentle murmur meant only for her. But instead of the judgment she expected, she saw a flicker of understanding, a surprising act of kindness in the way he shielded the folder from prying eyes. Her act had crumbled, but his reaction was the biggest surprise of all, a heart-aching moment of grace. The way he handled the situation, with such quiet dignity and respect, was utterly disarming. Her fake world was collapsing, yet this man, this simple waiter, was treating her with more decency than anyone else in the room. She looked at him, really looked at him, and realized with a jolt that there was far more to Jeffrey Freeman than his uniform suggested. Her secret was out, but a new, more profound mystery was just beginning to unfold, one that felt like destiny. The glamour of the five-star restaurant evaporated the moment Ruby Price unlocked the door to her small apartment. Here, there was no soft lighting, only the harsh reality of stacked bills on a worn-out kitchen table. This was her truth, a life stitched together with overtime shifts and careful budgeting, a world away from the rich fantasy she projected. The contrast was a heavy, emotional weight on her shoulders, a constant reminder of the life she was fighting. So hard to build for her family, and the secret lengths she'd go to achieve it. She wasn't driven by greed, but by a fierce, heart-aching love for her younger sister and their ailing mother. Every extra dollar she earned went towards their comfort, not her own. Her dream of a career in high-end brand management wasn't just a whim, it was a lifeline, the only path she could see that led to a future free from financial worry. This immense responsibility was the fuel for her desperate charade, a performance for an audience that held the keys to her version of a better world, a world of stability and security. Late into the night, long after her family was asleep, Ruby's room was her real sanctuary. Surrounded by borrowed textbooks on market strategy and consumer psychology, she studied the empires of the brands she adored. Her passion was authentic, her knowledge vast and deep. She could deconstruct a marketing campaign with the precision of a surgeon, her mind brimming with innovative ideas. It was a bitter irony that the only thing holding her back was the very thing she studied: the power of image and the perception of success. She wasn't a fake, her talent was real. This was the crux of her dilemma, the core of her strategy. In the exclusive world she yearned to enter, she believed that talent alone was not enough. You had to look the part to even be heard. To be taken seriously by the rich and powerful, she had to project an aura of wealth, a facade of belonging. It was a calculated risk, a gamble she felt she had to take. Her belief was that the industry wouldn't give a girl with a worn-out coat a second glance, no matter how brilliant she was. So she played the part, feeling like an imposter with every step. The experience of being nearly humiliated at the restaurant was a stark reminder of how fragile her performance was. Yet the memory of that waiter, Jeffrey Freeman, lingered in her mind. His unexpected kindness had been a strange comfort, a small island of decency in a sea of judgment. It was a surprise that unsettled her, making her question the very rules of the game she was trying so desperately to play and win. Was it possible that she had it all wrong? That genuine character could shine through a fabricated exterior? The thought was both terrifying and hopeful. The waiter's quiet respect had touched her more than any display of wealth she had witnessed that night. It was a small crack in her cynical worldview, a hint that her carefully crafted plot twist of a life might be heading in a direction she never could have anticipated, perhaps even toward a different kind of love story. For Jeffrey Freeman, the world looked very different from his penthouse suite. It was a sterile landscape of glass and steel, filled with boardroom meetings and hollow conversations. As a billionaire, he was surrounded by people, yet felt profoundly alone, adrift in a sea of insincerity. Had grown weary of the endless parade of socialites and entrepreneurs, each with a hidden agenda, their eyes gleaming with avarice. The constant stream of fake compliments and calculated friendships had left him feeling empty and deeply cynical about human nature. This profound disillusionment was the reason Head started his little experiment. Donning the simple uniform of a waiter or a concierge in his own establishments was his secret rebellion. It was a quest for something real, a search for a single genuine human connection, untainted by the knowledge of his immense wealth. This was his most guarded secret, a way to peel back the layers of society and see what lay beneath. He wasn't just serving tables, he was searching for a soul that wasn't for sale, a truly heart-aching discovery. Working on the floor gave him an unfiltered view of the world his brand catered to. He saw the casual cruelty, the entitlement, the way people could dismiss a service worker with a wave of their hand. He witnessed firsthand how the truly rich could sometimes be the poorest in spirit. Each shift was an education, a series of small, often disappointing encounters that chipped away at his hope. He found it to be a deeply emotional experience. Witnessing the daily struggles and triumphs of his own staff, he often felt a second-hand sting of shame, feeling humiliated for his employees who absorbed the arrogance of his patrons with professional grace. This undercover work gave him a unique and invaluable perspective on his own empire. It wasn't just about profits and losses anymore, it was about the human cost of luxury. It was a strange form of redemption for a man who had everything, a way to stay connected to the real world he felt he was losing touch with, one drink order at a time. Then, he met Ruby Price. She was a complete surprise, an anomaly he couldn't decipher. She was clearly putting on an act, her nervousness a stark contrast to her polished appearance. Yet, beneath that fake exterior, he sensed something else a flicker of vulnerability, a spark of genuine ambition that had nothing to do with finding a billionaire husband. Her presence was a fascinating plot twist in his otherwise predictable evenings of observation. She wasn't like the others. He couldn't shake the image of her face when her card was declined, flash of panic, followed by a quiet dignity. Her attempt to maintain her composure was more impressive to him than any flawless performance of wealth he had ever seen. He felt a pull, a curiosity so strong it felt like destiny calling his name. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that he had to see this enigmatic woman again. His love story might just have found its unexpected beginning. A few nights later, driven by a need to prove herself once more, Ruby returned to another of the city's top restaurants, unaware it was also owned by Jeffrey. This time she was armed with a bit more confidence, a little more resolve to make the connections she needed. As fate, or perhaps destiny, would have it, Jeffrey was once again working the floor, a simple waiter moving silently among the elite. He spotted her the moment she walked in, his heart giving an unexpected leap. It was a surprise he welcomed. As Jeffrey approached her table, he braced himself for the usual treatment, the dismissive tone, the lack of eye contact, the subtle condescension. It was the standard behavior He'd come to expect from the city's rich and powerful. He had seen it all before, a tiresome cycle of arrogance that left a bitter taste in his mouth. He wondered if Ruby Price, in her desperate attempt to fit in, would adopt the same fake attitude as everyone else around her, a thought that brought an emotional pang of disappointment. But Ruby did something that completely disarmed him. She looked up from her menu, straight into his eyes, and gave him a warm, genuine smile. "Good evening," she said, her voice clear and kind. "I hope you're having a good night." It was a simple gesture, a small acknowledgement of his humanity, yet in that environment, it felt like a revolutionary act. Jeffrey was so taken aback by this unexpected display of kindness that for a moment, he forgot his role and just stared. Throughout her meal, she continued to treat him with a level of respect that was shockingly rare. She said please and thank you for everything. She asked his name Jeffrey and used it when she needed something. She never snapped her fingers or raised her voice. To the casual observer, she was just a polite customer. But to the undercover billionaire, her decency was a beacon in a sea of entitlement. It was a heart-aching display of character that spoke volumes more than her designer knockoff ever could. He watched as the woman at the table next to Ruby's loudly complained that her water wasn't chilled enough, treating her own waiter as if he were an inconvenience. The contrast was staggering. Ruby, who was likely struggling far more than anyone in that room, was the one showing effortless grace. She wasn't just acting rich, she was acting with a richness of spirit that money couldn't buy. This realization hit Jeffrey with the force of a revelation, a major plot twist in his assessment of her. He found himself making excuses to pass by her table, just to be near that quiet warmth. Her simple act of kindness felt like a form of redemption for his jaded view of the world. She wasn't a gold digger. She wasn't just another social climber with a hidden agenda. She was someone with a good heart, caught in a complicated situation. And as he watched her, a feeling he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years began to stir, the first hint of a true love story. Later in the evening, as Jeffrey was clearing a nearby table, his attention was snagged by a conversation drifting from a group of impeccably dressed women. Their voices were low, but sharp as glass, dripping with venomous glee. Their target was clear Ruby Price. They were dissecting her appearance with surgical cruelty, their laughter a discordant melody in the elegant restaurant. They were the epitome of the shallow world the billionaire had come to despise, their hearts as cold as the diamonds on their fingers. "Can you believe that handbag?" One of them sneered, her voice laced with disdain. "It's from 2 seasons ago." "How utterly tragic." The others chimed in with agreement, their words a barrage of casual cruelty aimed at a woman who was simply trying to exist in their space. Jeffrey felt a hot surge of anger. He saw their comments for what they were, a pathetic attempt to reinforce their own status by tearing someone else down. The whole scene was a testament to a fake and empty existence. Ruby, who was sitting alone, could clearly hear them. Jeffrey watched her closely, expecting her to crumble or to offer a defensive retort. He saw her shoulders tense for a fraction of a second, a flicker of pain crossing her face before being replaced by a mask of serene composure. She was being openly and intentionally humiliated, yet she refused to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. It was a moment of immense strength, a silent act of defiance that was more powerful than any witty comeback could ever be. She didn't scowl or glare. Instead, she took a slow, deliberate sip of her water, placed her napkin on the table, and rose from her chair with a quiet grace that silenced them more effectively than a shout. Her dignity was her shield, an invisible armor that their petty insults could not penetrate. It was a heart-aching display of resilience. She didn't need to prove her worth to them, and in that moment of quiet strength, she had never looked more rich in character to the observant waiter. Jeffrey was utterly captivated. He had seen powerful people reduced to tears by far less. Ruby's ability to absorb such a public slight without losing her composure was a testament to an inner fortitude he deeply admired. It was an incredibly emotional moment, witnessing her quiet battle. This wasn't just about a handbag, it was about class, cruelty, and the courage to hold your head high when the world tries to make you feel small. It was a surprise to see such strength in someone so young. He knew then that his initial instincts about her were correct. There was a fire in Ruby Price, a strength that her modest circumstances couldn't conceal. The evening was turning into one plot twist after another, revealing layers of her character he was desperate to explore. This quiet, dignified woman, who was being mocked for her purse, had more class than all of those wealthy women combined. He felt an overwhelming urge to protect her, a feeling that hinted at the beginning of a profound love story. As Ruby was preparing to leave, trying to shake off the sting of the women's comments, Jeffrey saw his opportunity. He approached her table, ostensibly to give her the final receipt, but his true intention was something else entirely. "Excuse me, miss," he began, his voice as gentle as he could make it. "I couldn't help but notice your handbag. It's a beautiful piece from the Aria collection, isn't it?" He was taking a risk, mentioning the very object of her recent humiliation, but his gut told him it was the right move. Ruby's eyes widened in surprise. She'd expected him to be just another waiter, silently doing his job, not someone who would recognize a specific collection from a luxury brand. "Yes, it is," she replied, a hint of caution in her voice. "I'm surprised you know it." She was bracing for another judgment, another subtle jab at her expense. The emotional toll of the evening was high, and she wasn't sure how much more she could take without her composure finally cracking. "I just happen to have an interest in these things," Jeffrey said smoothly, leaning slightly against a nearby service station to appear casual. "I always thought that particular line was underrated. The marketing campaign didn't do it justice, in my opinion." This was the hook. He wasn't just commenting on the bag, he was opening a door to a deeper conversation, a secret test of sorts to see if her interest in this world was more than just skin deep. It was a plot twist she didn't see coming. What happened next left the undercover billionaire utterly stunned. Ruby's face lit up, the defensiveness melting away to be replaced by a fiery passion. She launched into a brilliant, insightful analysis of the brand's marketing failures, her words flowing with an effortless intelligence. She spoke about target demographics, brand dilution, and missed opportunities with a depth of knowledge that was staggering. This wasn't the talk of a fake enthusiast, this was the analysis of a true expert. She outlined 3 innovative ideas for the brand that were so clever, so perfectly on point, that Jeffrey, the actual owner of the company, felt an electric jolt. Her ideas were better than anything his own marketing team had pitched in the last 6 months. He was completely mesmerized, not just by her intellect, but by the raw passion that radiated from her. It was heartaching to see someone care so deeply, to possess such a pure and unrewarded talent. He had struck gold. He stood there, pretending to be a simple waiter, while listening to a woman who should have been running his company. The irony was immense. She thought she was talking to an employee. He knew he had just found a diamond. Her knowledge was her real wealth, her passion, her true luxury. He realized his search for authenticity was over. It was a moment of redemption for his faith in people, a discovery so profound it felt like destiny. His love story was now intertwined with a business revelation. As their conversation wound down, a daring idea sparked in Jeffrey's mind. It was one final crucial test. He needed to know if her integrity was as impressive as her intellect. While clearing the last of her things, he discreetly let his personal wallet slip from his apron, letting it fall unseen beside her chair. It was an old, worn leather wallet, but it was thick with cash, several $1,000s, far more than a simple waiter would ever carry. It was a deliberate, calculated risk. He thanked her for the enlightening conversation and walked away, his heart pounding a nervous rhythm. This was the moment of truth. Would she see the wallet? And if she did, what would she do? Every cynical instinct had developed as a billionaire told him the money would be too great a temptation for someone in her position. He half expected to never see the wallet again, a disappointing but not entirely unexpected outcome. It was a cruel test, but one he felt he had to perform. He hadn't even made it to the kitchen doors when he heard a voice call out, "Sir, excuse me. You forgot this." He turned to see Ruby rushing towards him, her face flushed with urgency. In her hand was his wallet. A wave of relief so powerful it almost buckled his knees washed over him. She hadn't hesitated. She hadn't peeked inside. Her first and only instinct was to return it. It was a truly heart-aching display of pure, unadulterated honesty. "Oh wow, thank you so much," Jeffrey said, feigning surprise as he took the wallet from her. "I don't know what I would have done. You're a lifesaver." He quickly pulled out a few $100 bills. "Please, you have to let me give you something for your honesty." He extended the cash to her, watching her reaction closely. This was the second part of the test. Her response would tell him everything he needed to know about her character. Ruby's eyes widened, and she took a step back, shaking her head firmly. "Oh no, I couldn't possibly," she said, her voice unwavering. "I didn't do it for a reward. It was the right thing to do." She refused the money with a quiet dignity that was becoming her signature trait. She wasn't looking for a handout. Her moral compass was not for sale. In a world where everyone seemed to have a price, she was priceless. It was an incredibly emotional and validating moment for Jeffrey. She had passed his test with flying colors, exceeding his wildest hopes. She was not a fake. She was not humiliated by her circumstances into compromising her values. She was genuinely good. That single act of integrity was worth more to Jeffrey than all the money in his bank account. He knew with absolute certainty that this woman was extraordinary. His secret investigation had led to an incredible plot twist, revealing a treasure of a person. This was no longer just a potential love story. It was a story of profound respect and admiration. After the wallet incident, Jeffrey found himself completely captivated by Ruby Price. He started orchestrating his shifts, making sure he was working at the restaurants he knew she occasionally frequented for her networking attempts. He operated under the guise of a humble waiter, but his mission had changed. It was no longer a general search for authenticity. It was now a specific, focused study of her. He needed to understand the woman who had so effortlessly captured his attention and respect. He would find small reasons to approach her table. A fresh glass of water, a question about her meal, a recommendation for dessert he knew she couldn't afford, but would appreciate hearing about. Each interaction was a small treasure, a chance to see her smile or hear her intelligent laugh. He offered her these small acts of kindness, like bringing her a complimentary coffee, explaining it was something the manager approved for special guests. It was a little white lie, a secret gift from the undercover billionaire. These brief conversations became the highlight of his day. He felt a connection with her that was more real and more profound than any had ever felt in his own rich social circles. With Ruby, he wasn't Jeffrey Freeman, the business magnate. He was just Jeffrey, the friendly waiter. For the first time in years, he felt seen for who he was, not for what he owned. It was a dizzying, emotional experience, a feeling of belonging that he hadn't realized he was so desperately missing. He learned little things about her, her love for classic films, her dry sense of humor, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her dreams. Each new detail was a brushstroke on the portrait of her he was painting in his mind. It was a heart-aching process of discovery, watching this incredible person navigate a world that was so often unkind to her. He was falling for her, not just for her integrity or her intellect, but for the beautiful, resilient person she was. This was the beginning of a real love story. The whole situation was a delicious plot twist in his own life. He, who could have any woman he wanted, was completely smitten with a struggling dreamer who had no idea who he was. The irony wasn't lost on him. He cherished the authenticity of their connection, knowing that it was only possible because of his disguise. He was getting to know the real Ruby, and in turn, she was getting to know a part of him that even his closest friends rarely saw. He knew he couldn't keep up the charade forever. The secret of his identity was a ticking clock, a complication that would eventually have to be addressed. But for now, he reveled in these stolen moments. Each conversation, each shared smile, felt like a step ordained by destiny. He was playing a dangerous game, one that could lead to her feeling humiliated and betrayed. But it was a risk he was willing to take for a chance at something so surprisingly real. Ruby began to look forward to seeing Jeffrey during her networking evenings. In a room full of sharks and social climbers, the kind waiter had become her unlikely anchor. His presence was a small comfort, a pocket of warmth in the cold, transactional atmosphere of the city's elite establishments. She found herself seeking out the restaurants where he worked, telling herself it was just a coincidence, but knowing deep down it wasn't. There was a surprise connection there she couldn't ignore. During their brief, stolen conversations, something remarkable happened. Ruby started to let her guard down. With him, she didn't feel the crushing pressure to perform. He wasn't judging her handbag or her pedigree, he just saw her. She found herself telling him things she hadn't told anyone else, sharing her real struggles, the financial pressures, the weight of her family's hopes on her shoulders. It was an emotional release she hadn't known she needed. One evening, after a particularly discouraging encounter with a dismissive CEO, she felt her composure start to fray. Jeffrey noticed the look on her face and quietly brought her a cup of tea on the house. As she sipped it, the words just tumbled out. "I feel like such a fraud," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "Like I'm playing dress-up and at any moment, someone is going to point and laugh." Admitting this secret made her feel incredibly vulnerable, almost humiliated. But Jeffrey didn't laugh or pity her. He just listened, his eyes filled with a deep, unwavering empathy. "Playing a part doesn't make you a fake," he said softly, his words a soothing balm on her frayed nerves. "It just means you know what you want and you're brave enough to go after it, even when it's hard." His simple validation was more powerful than any compliment she had ever received. It was a moment of profound kindness that solidified their bond. That conversation was a turning point, a major plot twist in their budding relationship. She was no longer just a customer, and he was no longer just a waiter. They were two people sharing a moment of genuine human connection. She was unknowingly telling her deepest insecurities to a billionaire, and he was falling deeper in love with the woman who felt like an imposter. The irony was thick, but the feelings were undeniably real and heart-aching. She began to see him as a confidant, a true friend. She would tell him about her brilliant ideas for branding, and he would listen with an intensity that made her feel like the most important person in the world. She had no idea that he was mentally taking notes, marveling at her talent. She was opening her heart to the one person who could actually make her dreams come true. A beautiful coincidence that felt more and more like destiny. Their love story was being built on a foundation of truth, even if it was wrapped in a lie. The delicate bubble of Jeffrey and Ruby's secret connection was destined to burst. The pinprick came in the form of Veronica Sterling, Jeffrey's impossibly chic and utterly venomous ex-girlfriend. She frequented the same high-end establishments, not out of necessity, but out of a habit of being seen. Veronica, who knew of Jeffrey's peculiar habit of occasionally slumming it as a waiter, spotted him one evening locked in a quiet, intense conversation with Ruby. Her eyes narrowed with suspicion and a familiar possessiveness. Veronica couldn't stand the sight of Jeffrey giving anyone that much attention, especially not a nobody like Ruby. From her vantage point, Ruby was just another social climber, a fake trying to sink her claws into a man Veronica still considered, on some level, to be hers. She saw the genuine smile on Jeffrey's fascia, smile she had rarely been able to elicit, and a bitter, cold jealousy took root in her heart. She decided then and there that she would uncover this girl's secret and expose her. She began to watch them, her observations sharp and malicious. She saw the small acts of kindness from Jeffrey, the extra coffee, the lingering conversations. She also saw Ruby, in her carefully curated outfits, looking increasingly comfortable talking to a simple waiter. To Veronica, it didn't add up, and she smelled a story. She was determined to orchestrate a plot twist that would not only embarrass Ruby but also remind Jeffrey of the kind of world he truly belonged to. Her world. Veronica prided herself on being able to spot an imposter from a mile away. She made a few discreet inquiries among her circle of equally snobbish friends, the same women who had mocked Ruby's handbag. Soon, she had a name, Ruby Price, and it didn't take much digging for her to uncover the truth of Ruby's modest life, a stark contrast to the rich persona she projected. The discovery was like a delicious poison, and Veronica couldn't wait to administer it. The plan began to form in her mind, a cruel and calculated scheme designed for maximum public humiliation. She wouldn't just expose Ruby, she would utterly destroy her credibility, ensuring she would be humiliated in front of the very people she was trying so desperately to impress. It was a game to Veronica, a way to alleviate her boredom and reassert her dominance in their shared social sphere. She saw it as a form of entertainment, blind to the emotional devastation it would cause. She decided to set her trap at an upcoming industry mixer, an event where both established figures and aspiring newcomers would be present. It was the perfect stage for her drama to unfold. She would unmask Ruby the fraud and in doing so remind the undercover billionaire that straying from his own kind always had consequences. The collision of their worlds was imminent, and Veronica was eagerly lighting the fuse, anticipating a surprise explosion that would rock them all. Veronica's plan was as cruel as it was meticulous. She arranged for the industry mixer to be held at one of Jeffrey's most exclusive hotels, knowing he might be there in his waiter disguise. She then used a connection to get Ruby a special invitation, baiting the trap with the promise of networking with top-level executives. For Ruby, the invitation felt like a miracle, a sign that her efforts were finally paying off. She had no idea it was a golden ticket to her own public execution, orchestrated by a woman she had never even met. The evening of the mixer, the air was buzzing with ambition and the clinking of champagne glasses. Ruby arrived, nervous but hopeful, dressed in her best, albeit rented, attire. Veronica watched her from across the room, a predator tracking her prey. She waited for the perfect moment, when Ruby was engaged in a promising conversation with a group of brand managers, very people who held the power to change her life. The stage for this emotional takedown was set. With a theatrical sigh, Veronica approached the group, feigning a friendly interruption. She turned to Ruby with a saccharine sweet smile. "Ruby Price, isn't it? I've heard so much about you," she began, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. She then launched into a carefully scripted monologue, pretending to be a philanthropist interested in helping up-and-coming talents. It was a masterful performance, a completely fake display of concern that was nothing short of brilliant in its malice. The trap was sprung. "I was so moved when I heard about your story," Veronica continued, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Working so hard to support your family, living in that charming little apartment in the outskirts. It's truly inspiring how you managed to afford even a single evening here." The words hung in the air, a death sentence to Ruby's credibility. The smiles on the executives' faces faltered, replaced by looks of confusion and subtle disdain. The public shaming had begun. Ruby froze, her face draining of all color. The room seemed to tilt, the cheerful chatter fading into a dull roar in her ears. She was being stripped bare, her most private struggles laid out for public consumption. The feeling of being humiliated was so intense, so overwhelming, it felt like a physical blow. She saw the judgment in their eyes, the dismissal. Her carefully constructed world, her one shot at her dream, was crumbling into dust around her. Her secret was out. Veronica watched, savoring the moment. She had successfully exposed the fraud, turning Ruby's ambition into a source of shame. It was a brutal, heart-aching scene of social assassination. She had engineered the perfect plot twist to ruin an innocent woman's life, all to satisfy her own petty jealousy. But what she didn't count on was another player in the game, one who had been watching from the sidelines, dressed in the humble uniform of a waiter. Just as Ruby stood paralyzed by the public humiliation, a calm voice cut through the tension. "Actually, Veronica, you have the story slightly wrong." All eyes turned to see Jeffrey, holding the tray of drinks, stepping forward from the edge of the circle. He was still in his waiter uniform, an unassuming figure who had no business interrupting a conversation among the city's elite. His presence was a complete surprise, a variable Veronica had not factored into her cruel equation. Veronica scoffed, annoyed by the interruption from a mere servant. "Excuse me? I don't believe I was talking to you," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. But Jeffrey didn't flinch. He placed his tray on a nearby table and met her gaze with an unnerving calm. "You see," he said, his voice carrying a newfound authority that confused everyone, "Miss Price isn't just an aspiring talent. She's a strategic consultant I've been working with privately. Her insights into brand revitalization are among the most brilliant I've ever encountered." A murmur went through the small crowd. The executives looked from the waiter to Ruby, their expressions shifting from disdain to intrigue. Veronica was momentarily stunned into silence. This was not the plot twist she had envisioned. A consultant? She stammered, trying to regain control. What would a waiter know about strategic consultants? This was her mistake. She underestimated him, blinded by his uniform and her own arrogance. Jeffrey's smile was sharp as a razor's edge. "Oh, I just pick things up," he said breezily. "For instance, I know that a truly rich brand, much like a person of substance, doesn't need to announce its value by putting others down. It relies on its inherent quality." He then turned to the executives. "Miss Price recently outlined a strategy that could increase market penetration for a struggling luxury line by 30 2/4. It was based on authenticity and connection, concepts that, as we've just seen, some people find difficult to grasp." The tables had been completely turned. Jeffrey, the humble waiter, had not only defended Ruby, but had also subtly exposed Veronica's character as petty and insecure, all without raising his voice. He had used his sharp, billionaire intellect to transform a moment of public shaming into a masterclass in professional poise. Ruby stared at him, a mix of shock and gratitude swelling in her chest. This act of kindness was the most profound she had ever witnessed. Veronica was left speechless, completely humiliated by her own failed scheme. The executives were now looking at Ruby with a newfound respect and intense curiosity. Who was this woman, and who was this impossibly articulate waiter who spoke like a CEO? The entire situation was baffling, an emotional roller coaster that left everyone's head spinning. Jeffrey had created a mystery far more compelling than Veronica's petty drama, setting the stage for his next move in a story that was becoming more like a legend than a love story. In the aftermath of the disastrous mixer, Ruby was a wreck of confused emotions. While she was deeply grateful for Jeffrey's incredible defense, the public exposure of her financial struggles had left her feeling humiliated and hopeless. She was sure that any chance she had of making it in this industry was now gone forever. She didn't see the waiter again that night, as he had discreetly vanished after turning the tables on Veronica, leaving her to wonder about the mysterious man who had become her unlikely guardian angel. Meanwhile, Jeffrey was setting the next phase of his plan into motion. He was furious at Veronica, but he channeled that anger into action. He knew that Ruby's talent was undeniable, and he was determined to give her a real platform to prove it, far away from the petty gossip of the social scene. From his office, the billionaire made an anonymous call to the head of HR at his own company, Freeman Enterprises, one of the largest luxury brand conglomerates in the world. He described a candidate with unparalleled strategic insight and a raw, innovative vision for the future of luxury branding. He didn't use Ruby's name at first, simply outlining her brilliant ideas, the same ones she had passionately shared with him over quiet conversations at the restaurant. He instructed his HR director to track this person down and arrange an official interview for a newly created senior brand strategist position. It was a secret intervention, a move guided by destiny. A few days later, Ruby received an email that made her heart stop. It was from Freeman Enterprises, inviting her for an interview. She was utterly baffled. She had never even applied for a job there. It was the big league, a dream she thought was years away from her grasp. The email mentioned that she had come highly recommended by an anonymous industry source who had been impressed by her market analysis. It was a complete surprise, a lifeline thrown to her when she was about to drown. The invitation was a powerful dose of redemption, a validation of her knowledge and hard work. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope that her talent, not her fake lifestyle, could be what truly mattered. The emotional whiplash was intense, swinging from the depths of despair to the peak of excitement. She had no idea that the kind waiter she had befriended was the anonymous source, the invisible hand guiding her toward her destiny. She threw herself into preparing for the interview with a renewed sense of purpose. This was her chance, her real shot. She would prove that she was more than her modest background or her rented dresses. The plot twist of the job offer had reignited her fighting spirit. As she researched the company, she felt a strange connection to its ethos, never suspecting that the man she knew as Jeffrey the waiter was, in fact, the mysterious and very rich Jeffrey Freeman, the company's visionary founder. The day of the interview, Ruby walked into the towering glass headquarters of Freeman Enterprises feeling a mix of terror and exhilarating purpose. This was it, the culmination of all her late-night studying, her sacrifices, her carefully constructed, fake persona that had, by some miracle, led her to this very real opportunity. She smoothed down her simple, professional blazer and outfit, bought on clearance, but worn with the confidence of a CEO, and took a deep breath. She was ready to prove her worth. From the moment she started speaking, she captivated the panel of senior executives. She didn't just answer their questions, she challenged their assumptions. She spoke with the same fiery passion and brilliant insight she had shown the man she knew only as a waiter. She laid out a bold new vision for one of their classic brands, backing up every idea with impeccable data and a deep, intuitive understanding of consumer desire. Her talent was not a facade, it was a force of nature. The executives were stunned. They had been expecting a promising candidate, but they were faced with a visionary. Her ideas were fresh, audacious, and most importantly, felt deeply authentic. They saw past her simple resume and recognized the mind of a master strategist. It was an incredibly emotional and powerful performance, a testament to the fact that true brilliance cannot be hidden by circumstance. It was a surprise to all of them. Unbeknownst to Ruby, Jeffrey was watching the entire interview via a secret video feed in his office. A proud, unrestrained smile spread across his face. He felt a profound sense of redemption, not for her, but for his own belief in her. She hadn't just met his expectations, she had shattered them. Listening to her speak with such confidence and authority, he felt a surge of feeling so intense it was heart-aching. This was the woman he was falling in love with, and she was even more incredible than he had imagined. The panel was unanimous. Before the interview was even over, they knew they had to have her. The head of HR, Following Jeffrey's prearranged instructions, ended the meeting with an unexpected offer. "Ms. Price, your vision is exactly what this company needs," she said, her tone filled with genuine admiration. "As a next step, we would like to formally invite you to be our special guest at the company's annual brand gala this Friday. It would be an opportunity for you to meet the wider team." Ruby was speechless. An invitation to the most exclusive event in the industry wasn't just a good sign, it was a fairy tale ending to the most stressful week of her life. It was a plot twist beyond her wildest dreams. She accepted with a grateful heart, completely unaware that the company's mysterious owner, the billionaire who would be in attendance, was the same kind waiter who had set this entire journey in motion. Her destiny was calling, and she was about to answer. The night of the Freeman Enterprises brand gala was a spectacle of power and wealth. The city's most influential figures, all dressed in their finest, moved through a ballroom dripping with crystals and ambition. Ruby arrived feeling like she had stepped into another dimension. This time, however, she didn't feel like a complete fake. She had been invited. She had earned her place here, and the thought gave her a newfound confidence. Her presence was a quiet victory, a deeply emotional moment for her. But lurking in the shadows of the grand event was Veronica Sterling. She was shocked and furious to see Ruby there, mingling effortlessly with industry leaders. Her attempt to have Ruby humiliated at the mixer had backfired spectacularly, and seeing her now thriving was an insult she could not bear. Veronica, whose own invitation was secured by her family's name and not her talent, saw Ruby's presence as a personal affront. A venomous new plan began to hatch in her mind. She approached the head of security, a man she knew from years of attending such events. With a conspiratorial whisper and a devious smile, she planted her poisonous seed. "You see that woman over there?" she said, gesturing towards Ruby. "Ruby Price. I have it on good authority she crashed the party. She's not on the elite guest list. She's a fraud who sneaks into these things to network. You should probably have her removed before she causes a scene." It was a cruel lie, a desperate final act of sabotage. The head of security, a man accustomed to dealing with social climbers, took Veronica at her word. He saw Ruby, a woman he didn't recognize, and Veronica, a familiar face from a powerful family. He made a snap judgment, a fatal error. He approached Ruby discreetly as she was talking to a potential mentor, his voice low but firm. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me. There seems to be a discrepancy with your name on the guest list." The words hit Ruby like a physical blow. The familiar sickening feeling of humiliation washed over her once again. All her confidence evaporated, replaced by confusion and panic. "But I was invited," she stammered, her voice trembling. "By the hiring committee." But the guard was resolute, his expression unyielding. He began to escort her towards the exit, just as Veronica watched from a distance, a triumphant smirk on her face. This was the ultimate plot twist, her final victory. The scene was a heart-aching tragedy in the making. Ruby's dream, which had been so close she could taste it, was turning into her worst nightmare. She was about to be thrown out of the most important event of her life, labeled as a fraud in front of everyone. It was the ultimate degradation, a final crushing defeat. Little did anyone know, the host of the evening was about to take the stage, and the real owner of the guest list was about to make a surprise announcement that would change everything. Just as Ruby reached the grand entrance of the ballroom, her dream dissolving into shame, the lights dimmed and a hush fell over the crowd. The master of ceremonies stepped up to the podium on stage. And now his voice boomed, "It is my distinct honor to introduce the man behind it all, the visionary founder and owner of Freeman Enterprises, the one and only, Mr. Jeffrey Freeman." The security guard paused, and all eyes turned to the stage, including Ruby's, her heart filled with despair. Out from the wings walked a man in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. He moved with a familiar, unhurried grace, his eyes scanning the crowd with a calm authority. Ruby's breath caught in her throat. Her mind reeled in disbelief. It was him. It was Jeffrey, the kind, empathetic waiter who had defended her, listened to her dreams, and shown her so much kindness. He wasn't a waiter at all. He was the billionaire owner of the entire empire. The ultimate plot twist had just been revealed. Jeffrey reached the podium and smiled, but his eyes weren't on the crowd of socialites and executives. They were locked on Ruby, standing by the door with the security guard. "Good evening, everyone," he began. "Tonight, we are here to celebrate the future of our brand. And the future is not just about profits or market share. It's about character. It's about integrity." He paused, letting his words sink in. The entire room was hanging on his every word, sensing this was no ordinary speech. "There is someone here tonight who embodies that future," Jeffrey continued, his voice ringing with conviction. "Someone whose brilliance is matched only by her honesty. A person I have been fortunate enough to get to know, who has more value in her little finger than many of us have in our entire portfolios." He then raised his hand and pointed directly at Ruby. "Ruby Price, could you please join me on stage?" A collective gasp rippled through the room. Veronica's face turned white as a sheet. The security guard released Ruby's arm, his expression one of utter shock and horror. Numbly, as if in a dream, Ruby walked towards the stage. Jeffrey met her at the steps, taking her hand. He turned back to the audience. "Many of you see a young woman," he declared. "I see a leader. Some of you might have heard rumors or gossip, attempts to have her humiliated or dismissed as a fake. But I know her secret. She's the most authentic person in this room." He then revealed it all: his undercover work, her incredible talent, her honesty with the wallet, and her quiet dignity in the face of cruelty. "This is the character our brand will be built on," he announced, his voice filled with emotional power. "Her kindness is our new currency. Her integrity is our new asset." He turned to Ruby, his eyes shining. "Her vision is our future." It was her ultimate redemption, a heart-aching climax that marked the true beginning of their improbable and destined love story. What an incredible journey of heart, humility, and the beautiful chaos of destiny. We've just witnessed how a life that felt completely fake could lead to the most authentic connection imaginable, proving that what we pretend to be can sometimes lead us to who we are truly meant to become. Ruby and Jeffrey's story is a powerful reminder that in a world obsessed with the shiny exterior of the rich and famous, the greatest treasures are still integrity, kindness, and a heart that refuses to be humiliated by circumstance. It's a love story built not on a foundation of wealth, but on the quiet strength of character. Now we want to turn the conversation over to you, our incredible community. What was the single moment in this emotional story that impacted you the most? Was it when Ruby returned the wallet, proving her unwavering honesty? Or was it when Jeffrey, the humble waiter, stood up for her and turned the tables on his ex? And we have to ask, did you expect that final plot twist at the gala, or did you have a different ending in mind? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. We genuinely love reading every single one. If this story touched your heart, the best way to show your support is by giving this video a big thumbs up. Your likes help us reach more people who need to hear messages like this one. And if you believe in the power of stories that inspire and uplift, please consider sharing this video with a friend or family member who would enjoy it. Every share helps our community grow and allows us to continue creating content that matters. Content that focuses on these truly heart-aching moments of human connection. Finally, if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss one of our upcoming stories. We have a library full of powerful videos for you to explore, so feel free to check out our older content after this. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Remember, your true value is never defined by your possessions, but by the richness of your spirit. Well, see you in the next video.